Welcome to Therapy, Coaching, and Dreams, where we invite you into a space to cultivate greater awareness, clarify your purpose, and expand your fulfillment by exploring the inner landscape of personality. I'm your co-host, D. Kelley, and I'm joined by Jim Shalley. Together, we bring our experience in coaching and therapy to help you do some of your own work in self-understanding and personal growth. Whether it's breaking old patterns, navigating relational dynamics, exploring the wisdom of the shadow side, or unlocking the symbolic language of dreams, we aim to create a space for insight, for integration, and the kind of clarity that supports a more conscious and fulfilling life. This episode provides somewhat of an introduction to therapy and the concept of looking back in order to move ahead. We are glad you have joined us. I love the first chapter of your book that says looking back to move ahead.
Okay.
And I think that the piece that you're trying to get at is that family of origin has a huge impact on how we handle emotions. So, am I reading that right? And if so, give us a little bit more about what that implies.
Absolutely. Because that's how I frame it for couples that are really struggling. I'll say basically it's not a bad marriage. It's what you don't understand about your family of origin and how you developed using your emotions, how they used emotions. That's the complicating factor. So it takes the pressure off of the idea that it's a bad marriage. So they actually relax a little bit, thinking, okay, we can blame people for our problems. I work real hard at flipping that around real quick, and I said it's not about blame; it's figuring it out. So yeah, you're right, and that's the importance of looking in the mirror and saying, okay, or looking back and saying, okay, how did I really form my attachments to my own emotions, or not? Didn't attach to my emotions. I distracted. Use all kinds of different methods that kids do. Go to their rooms, stay in rooms all the time because the parents are too conflictual. All that stuff. Yeah.
When you bring that up, um, is there a spectrum across which couples fall in terms of, oh, I immediately get it, or I don't get what you're talking about?
Oh, that's a great question. Ah, if people have been exposed to some kind of introspection and counseling, they're more likely to get it. But for a lot of couples, it's new understanding, but they get enough of it that it helps them to relax. Because you're basically taking the blame away. It's not her fault or his fault. It's just the way things we don't understand clearly about how we formed our own emotional structure.
So, one of the things that Sanford talks about, an author that you and I have both read a bit on, he talks about um, projecting the feminine. If you're the masculine in the relationship, projecting the feminine onto your partner, and you're not really talking to your partner, you're talking to the feminine that's within you. Is that formed out of, at least at times, formed out of your family of origin? Is that part of where that image comes from? Or when you try and raise the family of origin thing, is that a completely different issue?
I thi- it's kind of integrated because what's organic and what's developed as far as what's the genetic predisposition to this, and then what do I develop from modeling from my parents. So, in other words, if there's a strong masculine energy in the home, they're more likely to project the feminine onto their wives in this case, and not carry their own feminine energy because they would be so out of touch with that. In fact, a lot of people will struggle with the idea, especially men, that I'm calling them a woman. And I'll have to distinguish this. No, it's not male, female. It's an energy that we all possess. That's still really a hard concept again for most men. And some women resist the idea that they're more masculine. But as soon as you point out a few traits that are kind of universally known as a masculine or feminine trait, they kind of get that.
As somebody push on me real strongly about the masculine feminine language, and they wanted me to shift to something that they were more familiar with, which was yin and yang, as
Okay.
ways to describe it, which is fine. I'm not opposed to
Mhm.
using that kind of language if it helps somebody get further down the road. But even within that system, the yin is typically referred to as the feminine passive voice, and the yang
Yeah,
is referred to the masculine aggressive
right.
voice.
But you still have to distinguish the traits that each of those energies possess, whatever language you use.
Yeah,
And it's, some say soft and hard energies as far as just again, feminine is more relational, masculine is more task driven, if you had to be real stereotypical on how you view that.
yeah. The other thing that always seems to me to help me understand this journey and what language to use is, and it's probably my own defensiveness, but I spend a little more time working with people's dreams than maybe you do. I'm not sure if that's true.
Yeah, a lot more.
But I've never had a client come and talk to me about the yin and yang appearing in a dream. Typically, we appear as individuals, either with a masculine image or a feminine image, sometimes androgynous. But we have these personas within the context of a dream. And so when I kind of shift the language and say, so what's showing up in your dreams? Let's just deal with that. Sometimes it helps me move past that debate on the language and what we're using.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'd like to start off with in this session, as well as this looking back at our family of origin, is the difference between how we present ourselves to others and who we really are. I think that happens within marriage, but it also happens in the workplace. It happens in our certainly family of origin. But help us distinguish a little bit between that person or persona that we want to be seen by others and who we truly are.
That's an incredibly deep conversation.
Okay, then let's postpone that till next year.
Yeah, let's stay shallow. Could we stay shallow for a while?
That's right. Because nobody
Uh,
cares about that deeper stuff. That's
yeah,
the whole point.
I think that's way deep. I don't think people are going to get it. They're not going to understand it. So,
So, how would we
because the
get
truth,
Larry to a point where he might consider that? that?
because the true self, some would say, well, I'm a jerk. That's my true self. So I'm not going to worry about it. Thanks for giving me permission to be my true self. So I had this conversation in my brain after you brought that up in one of your emails. And I thought, okay, do we live out of the unconscious in my mind for the first half, kind of what we were trained to be and who we thought we were going to be, who our parents wanted us to be. And then typically there's a trauma or something that happens in midlife that kind of gets our attention to decide if we want to keep living that way. And so in my mind, that's the growing up phase. And so now I have enough life experience. Carl Jung talked about that a lot. I have enough life experience now to figure out who I want to be. So at that point, I think you strive for a true self that's integrating all the things that we talk about in the sense of my better self. Like I can't be held hostage to the unconscious forces. Now I really understand who I want to be. And then I take all those experiences and don't repeat crazy patterns. I try not to be destructive. In my mind, that's the true self. But that's, again, a complicated, deeper conversation because on the surface, what my authentic self is, I really don't like people. So I'm just going to say I don't like people and I don't want to be around people. That's my true self. Okay, that may be, but is that your best self? And
Mm.
so that conversation gets, I think, at a deeper level as far as challenging us to be, for example, treating each other with respect, even if they're not treating our treating, treating, edit that out. I got lost
Because
in
it
my
was a
own head there.
powerful moment that we're about
It
to
was
crescendo right there.
that my mind went, whoops.
But nobody cares, so
So
just keep going.
yeah, let's just keep going. So I think that's why I say it's a deeper conversation as far as getting people to, because people throw the term around authentic self all the time. Uh, you know what that means?
Yeah, I don't. I don't. But I would say I don't know why I resonate a little bit more with the true self. I think it's in part because when I hear the notion that that true me has been covered over by a whole lot of effort on my part to please others, And if I pushed away that pleasing of others, would there be something different there? Would there be something different between um, trying to please my parents, trying to please my boss, trying to please my spouse, trying to please my kids, trying to please my church, trying to please my you name the entity that I'm affiliated with, and go, yeah, but behind that, and I hear what you're saying, that maybe my true self is um, that I contend my true self is I just don't like being around people.
Right.
But what I hear you saying, though, is that if we pay attention to balance in our life, like we recognize where that comes from, that desire not to be around people, and maybe dig a little bit deeper and say, if there was more balance, would there be a better self? Am I
Yeah.
hearing you correctly?
Yeah. Like what's interfering with myself and being that true self? To your point, the need to please, I have to uncover that and figure out why did I develop that pattern of trying to please? And is that my true self, or am I just, it's like an enabler, someone who overfunctions. Why do they do that? Well, from my perspective, that's just another form of narcissism. It's about their need
Mm,
to make everybody else happy.
yeah.
So that could be interfering absolutely with them being them true selves, because they need to set better boundaries. They need to have that conversation in a deeper way with, why am I so unhappy at age 40 when I've taken care of everybody?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, well, it could be that that's gotten in your way of really being able to establish boundaries that deep inside were excused, or people didn't pay attention to because you weren't strong enough to do it. So yeah, that's why it's complicated. It's like, how well do I know myself to know what's keeping me from really being who I think I want to be, or who uh, I imagine I can be, all that stuff. I mean, that's why it's, again, challenging to really get to that point in life where, okay, in retirement, I'm going to be really who I really am.
Yeah.
Lot of wasted time there.
One of the things that often strikes me is that a behavior or pattern that I had that helped me to survive no longer serves me well.
Yeah,
So I need to be grateful for how it got me through trauma, or how it got me through my 20s, or whatever the case might be,
yeah,
and then
that's
say, but this no longer helps me to move forward.
right. That's why I talk about living out of the unconscious for the first half. It's like we develop patterns of coping,
Mm,
and they work until they don't. And typically, it takes a trauma, loss of a job, a divorce, something like that, that gets our attention and say, okay, do I want to keep living this way? And
okay.
again, that the classic thing is, people will reach that point and then they'll just, the classic stuff is buy a sports car, get some gold chains, whatever, and then they'll go back living the same way. They think they've made a change when they really haven't understood the depth of what was happening.
Yeah. So now it's the same person, just with gold chains.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now they're even weighted down more. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy.
So,
Another thing that really works out well is when I reframe that a trauma is the doorway through a better marriage, through a better understanding of who you are. Even though you have to validate the trauma, obviously, it can really help people see the importance of working through the trauma to a better place, as opposed to wallowing in it. Because there's positive and negatives to both the masculine and feminine, which is another whole conversation, probably.
yeah, we're going to get that into that in subsequent weeks. But
Right.
I don't want to leave a loose end there. Are you saying that in this example that you're using, a couple, that you go back and start trying to unpack the trauma that they had before this relationship? Or are you saying that a trauma that brought them to this moment is what we need to work through?
That's where people get stuck. So let's say a couple comes in, one of them had an affair. So the temptation is to focus on the affair to the point where you lose any kind of understanding of the relationship between the two of them. And that wound is so strong sometimes that it's really hard to get past that. And they keep dwelling on, he needs to do this, she needs to do this, and that can sabotage the deeper level. So you have to address it to some degree, and they have to feel like there's understanding as far as the betrayal that caused. And then at some point, to bring real healing to the relationship, yeah, you have to frame it and say that trauma has gotten you to a place. Do you want to work on this and save it and make it better? Or what do we do? And that's always the crisis.
Yeah. And always their choice.
Yes, absolutely. And again, that's where if the one person is more static in their personality, they'll stay stuck in the affair and think until they make that right, which is an impossibility on some level, then we can't move forward. And that will limit, from my perspective, the ability to cause the growth that needed to happen before the affair. They will still focus on that, and that inhibits what I would say the constructive part of the trauma.
Yeah. So let's just say you're coming to the end of a first or second session with a person or couple, and you've raised this issue of looking back to move ahead. This consider how you handled emotions as a way by which to understand where you are today in handling emotions. Do you ever send somebody away with, so between now and the next time we get together, think on these things or uh, consider something like that? I don't want to necessarily call it homework, but is there anything that you kind of try and draw out of them before the next time you get together?
Yeah, I basically just give a general assignment. If it sparked an interest in understanding their family of origin, emotional structure, and you do that by simply getting them to have a memory of some profound moment that changed the direction of when they were a kid. So that's intriguing, mostly to the women in the beginning. Men, you have to work a little harder to make the connection because they often, shouldn't say all of them, but a lot of men will minimize and say it has nothing to do with my life right now. But as soon as you make that strong connection, it's pretty hard to not realize that that's really true. And so you make it intriguing for them to begin that discovery. Like I gave an assignment this week for a couple to write down as many things as they could as far as the effective and ineffective use of emotions in our family of origin.
Hmm. Well, what a great exercise. And then, you don't talk about it. And that's it.
No,
It's
no,
like busy
no.
work.
Because what's funny is that I had actually another couple say they wanted more homework, and they noticed that I don't give a lot. I said, "Well, I found out that if I give homework, uh, they don't do it." So I'm very open-ended. I'll give you things to do, but if you come back in the next session and you haven't done it, I'm not gonna beat you up and say, "Get out of my office." I'm gonna
Yep.
go with your energy. This last couple that really wanted homework, I said the same thing, and I said, "So if you're motivated, I would love it, but I probably won't remind you. If you come in with the idea and you have done the homework, that's great. We'll talk about it." So
Yeah. Great point.
that's always a delicate balance because they project onto you that you're supposed to hold them accountable in that way. And I always have been the person that says, because they'll say, "Why didn't you bring up the homework?" I said, "Well, it was your homework."
Yeah. And it's your session and it's guided by you. So,
Absolutely. And I do
yeah.
say that if you want me to come home and live with you, that's a larger expense. So,
But for the right price, we could probably work that
but
out.
for the right price, speaking to my true self,
This is great. I'm looking forward to this. We're going to get a little bit deeper into how we move toward balance, some of the different styles that we have. Good deal, my friend. It feels like that's a good wrap.
yeah, no, that's good stuff.
Well, that's it for this episode of Therapy, Coaching, and Dreams. If you're enjoying the podcast, we'd love for you to share it with someone who might appreciate it as well. And if you're interested in working with either of the co-hosts, you can do so at their respective websites, Dr. Shalley at afccounselors.com or Dr. Kelley at inyourdreams.coach. Thanks for being here. And until next time, keep growing, stay curious, and take good care of yourself.